Hello, everyone. Welcome to Strategic Boardroom. Welcome to the Strategic Business Growth Multiplier. It's good to see you. My name is Mark Dolfini, and you are in the right spot. If you're here to learn how to grow your business and possibly even scale your business, growing and scaling are not the same things, although those words are getting thrown around very interchangeably right now on social media. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But for right now, I'd like to introduce myself to you, and I'd like you to introduce yourself. So I see some of them already burning up the chat lines. It is really good, the comment section rather. So we've got Natasha. Hello, Natasha. Nice to see you. Let's see. So, yep. Hello. You're saying hello. Good to see you. Ogachi. Yep. Anyone here? Yeah. Ogachi, or Getchi, you got here a little bit early. So, yeah, I appreciate you being early. And you are in New York in digital marketing. Okay, Ogechi. I grew up there, so I grew up in the Catskills. So hopefully you are enjoying this beautiful weather like we are here in the Midwest. I live in the Midwest now. Let's see. Natasha is Castellano. Natasha Castellano in Maryland, and you are in the fitness world. Very good. All right. Well, for those of you who are coming in, we've got some other people joining us right now. It's really good to see you. I'm going to answer a couple questions right out of the gate because I get these questions very often. And if one of you wants to take the charge on this, that would be great. Because I always get people who will ask me, "Oh, is this going to be is this going to be recorded, and will you get the replay?" Yes, you will. It is going to be recorded, and yes, you will be the replay, or you will get the replay if you signed up through Eventbrite. You will get the replay of this email to you. If you are on YouTube, you will not. You will just have to watch it again on YouTube. So you'll just set that aside. I know a couple people here are joining us on YouTube. It's welcome. Good to see you. Haram, good to see you. HT Service Pros, HVAC. I think I've heard of you guys. Where are you out of, Haram? I feel like I have seen that name before. So good to have you here. You not just HVAC and plumbing, but also electrical handyman. Excellent. You're covering a lot of different things. Excellent. All right. So for those of you again who are joining me, a couple really quick things I'm going to ask you as we get into the strategic business growth multiplier. Let me go ahead and put that up so you can see that. Some of you are watching on your cell phones. So for those of you who are watching on your cell phones, I know that the slides are a little smaller. I was actually kind of interested to see how many people actually watch on their cell phones. Who here is watching this on their cell phone, and who here is watching it on a bigger screen? I'm just curious, just taking an informal poll. If you want to go ahead and put that in the comment section. You are in Atlanta. Okay, I feel like I have seen that because I have quite a few business contacts in Atlanta, so maybe it's where I've seen that. Well, very good. So for those of you who are maybe watching on cell phone or you're watching this on replay, however you're watching this, there's a couple things I just want to put in front of you right now and make sure you are learning the most that you possibly can learn during this next roughly hour and 15 minutes. It doesn't have to necessarily go that long. I always leave room for questions. So if you are watching this live, please just go ahead and start typing your questions out when you have a question. Be specific though, like recognize that I may be a minute or two later after. If you say, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, I'm not sure what that you meant, right? Because I might have covered a couple different topics during that period of time. So be specific in your questions, number one. And that way we all know what you're specifically asking for. We're not going back and forth. But as you're asking those questions, what I want you to do is I want you to stay completely plugged in during this next hour or so. And the reason for that is because I want you to train your brains for concentration. I hear all these people coming up with, oh man, it's hard for me to concentrate and staying distracted. Look, your mind is a muscle, and training that muscle to stay plugged in during a period of time, I know is tough for some folks. You're talking to a card-carrying ADHD, primarily inattentive and not so impulsive sort of person. I'm definitely leaning more towards inattentive type person, but I'm just saying I get it, and it can definitely be improved with a little bit of practice. So if you're on your phone, if you're doing other things, please try to limit your distractions during this next hour, because I don't want you to miss anything. I don't want you to miss anything really important, because this can really be foundationally transformative for you. And I want to make sure that your time spent with me is valuable and valued. Natasha, you are on a cell phone. Okay, great. You think you're the only one that's answering questions today? You and Haram. All right. So, again, for those of you who are joining, let me know where you're from and what line of your work that you're in. And the reason I'm asking this too is because as I go through and start answering questions, or as I bring up topics, from a strategic perspective, I want to make it relevant to you and your business. So, and the reason for that is because we're going to be establishing a strategy for your life and your business. And strategy inherently means top down, not bottom up, not granular to big picture, but big picture to granular. That's what strategy means. That's what being strategic means. So we've got a couple other people. Let's see, Tingshan. Tingshan, you are in Canada. Excellent. Glad that you could join us today. So that's the one thing. So that we're going to be taking a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. So we're not going to get super granular on different things. We're talking strategy. We're talking big picture, right? So I want you to understand that we will be talking some tactics, but of course you guys all have different businesses. You all have different avatar. You all have different core purposes. We're going to be talking about those things here in a little bit, but I want to make sure that you understand the difference between a strategist and a tactician, right? Tactician is good as a very specific, granular things. A strategist is going to group those tactics together and find the best tactician. So again, the fact that you're here, you're interested in leadership, you're interested in being more effective in your organization and bringing together the best people for your organization, especially if you're trying to grow and scale, you are going to need people. You can't do this by yourself. And this is where right now I'm building a sales team. And the reason I'm building a sales team is because I have a really cool piece of infrastructure that is going to help out a lot of people in the restaurant world. And I've got a piece of infrastructure that I can bring to that, and I want to have some people that will be able to sell, in addition to me putting that in front of other people, right? So I have to bring others into my organization so I can leverage their time, right? That's how you grow, and especially it's how you scale. Okay, so Haram is saying you are on a cell phone as well. Okay, interesting. You know, it's kind of funny how many people actually watch this on a cell phone. I never really gave it much thought before. I just assumed everybody was just on a computer, right? Chilling around, chilling out. All right. So who is this for? Who is this for? This is for established business owners with employees, or it could be entrepreneurs who don't even have a business yet, but they know you're going to be bringing people on board. Or, right, maybe you have an established business, but you don't have employees yet. All right. Now, who is this not for? Now, I'm going to say it, but before you bail, just hang tight with me for a second. This is not for the solopreneur who wants to stay that way. And there is, especially in the US, there's a lot of solopreneurs. Out of the 36 million that reported on the last census, and I believe the last census was 2023, 32 million non-owner or non-employer businesses were identified. That means 32 million solopreneurs. That leaves about 5.7 million that actually had employees. Okay, so you solopreneurs are literally the backbone of the American economy, and I suspect that's probably pretty similar among many other countries. But here's the thing: you do rely on other people, even though you're a solopreneur. It doesn't mean that you don't rely on other people. It doesn't mean that you don't rely on vendors or subcontractors or suppliers. Okay, so I want you to understand that even though you're a solopreneur and you're totally fine staying that way, I want you to understand if you're going to try to just do this on your own and not bring in anybody else ever, you're going to have real trouble growing and scaling your business. So bringing in others into your organization has a natural scaling effect on your business. Now, I'm going to tell you something that a lot of other people are not going to tell you. And I don't know if for those of you who are maybe notice this, but this is the interesting thing that I'm seeing this trend on social media right now is there's a lot of folks who are getting out there saying, oh, if you're trying to grow your business, if you're trying to scale your business, this is what you need to do. I'm going to tell you a couple of truths is that you cannot scale a broken business model, and not all businesses inherently are scalable. And I'm telling you this truth because there are just some businesses that you just can't scale. And I'm telling you this right now because There's a lot of people who are under the impression like, oh, I'm really trying to grow and scale this business. And I'm like, look, man, you've got a broken business model, and that broken business model is never going to fix itself. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. You might be making a lot of money on it, right? But if you're trying to get into something that's scalable, you might have to just use that side hustle that you're doing that's helping you make a bunch of money as a lifeboat to get you to something else, right? That's exactly what I did back in 2009, back when the economy fell apart. And I'm pretty handy at building or fixing things, not building things, but fixing things. I can fix pretty much anything with any appliances, electrical, plumbing, anything around that, anything mechanical. I'm actually pretty good at fixing. What I'm not really good at is like framing in a window or like hanging a door. Like carpentry is not my thing, right? But I can fix a lot of stuff. So I used that handyman type business as a springboard to something better because it was very profitable. It was highly profitable, but it was long, long days. It was like 12, 13, 14-hour days sometimes. But I was making sometimes between $1,000 and $1,500 a month. Is a handyman business in my market scalable? It really wasn't. I mean, anybody else I brought in, they either weren't worth really working, right? Like that I had to directly supervise them all the time, or they would just go do it themselves, right? So it was really, really difficult to scale that, and I really wasn't all that interested in scaling it in my market. So I'm just saying I used that, right? And I did that for about a course of a year, and with that money was able to go and get into other types of businesses, which I have been in many other types of businesses. So let's take a look. We got a couple people out here. Natasha's saying, I don't have employees and don't plan to have any. And that's fine. I'm not suggesting that you don't have to have employees. What I'm saying is that you do need other people, and that might be marketing professionals. It might be sales professionals, right? It could be someone else who does this fractionally. Okay. As a strategist, I don't really plan on having anybody else deliver strategy or do what I'm doing right now for me. But I do have other people that help me on the back end, and we'll talk about that when we get into the 4 core functions of business. Something else, Param, someone else is saying, I want to scale my team as high as possible with time. Excellent, right? And this is going to be helpful for you because we're going to be talking about systems and we're going to be talking about psychology. So that's the main thing. So before we get to the agenda, what I want you to understand is there's a difference between seeking knowledge to understand and seeking knowledge to take action. So at the end of this, I know you're going to be getting a lot of information, but what I want you to know is that I want to hear at the end, right? Hey, yeah, that was great. Thanks so much. Yeah, that's fine. But I'm not here for the applause. I want to hear because I know what you're going to do differently tomorrow. What are you going to get out of bed and do tomorrow that's going to be different based on what you learned today? I hear a lot of people that'll say, yeah, I listen to podcasts all the time and I do a lot of education. I'm like, great. What podcast did you listen to 3 days ago? And what action are you taking based on that? Right? So for me, I don't want this to be like you just auditing the class. I want you to learn something that's going to be highly actionable for me or for you. So I just want to make sure that you're learning this stuff, not just for the sake of learning it, but also for the sake of taking action. Let's see. So Haram is saying, I need to find sales professionals. I am bad at consistently finding work right now. Yeah. Well, it's probably not sales professionals. That's the problem. If you're having problem with that, you probably have a lead generation problem, right? Because sales is, and I understand why you said sales. You'll understand that when we get to the 4 core functions is we're talking about lead generation. So let's get into that. I promise we're going to get there. So let's get to the agenda for right now. Got a few people joining us. Let us know where you're from. Let us know what kind of business that you're in. And again, we're going to be covering, and again, for those of you who are just showing up, you will, if you signed up through Eventbrite, you will be getting this on replay. So let's get to the agenda. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about the systems component of your business, and then we're going to be talking about the psychology. So the systems part is probably the longest piece of this. So hang in there. It's going to take me about 15 or so minutes to get through the systems component, and then we're going to talk about the psychology component. Then we're going to be looking at the 4 core functions of business. So it have to be true in every single business. And then finally, we're going to be talking about scaling and potentially growing your business. And then finally, we're looking at resources to help you beyond today. So this business approach that I take is called the S&P approach, the systems and psychology approach to business. And first and foremost, we're going to be talking about the systems. When we talk about systems, okay, everything that I talk about systems comes out of this book. If you look over my shoulder here, that's the same book, The Time Wealthy Advantage. I published this in May of last year in 2025 and 4 guides immediately afterwards. So I published 5 books last year, and all of this stuff is what I'm going to be talking about in this, in this series here. So in this training. If you live in the domestic U.S. and you'd like a copy that I can sign for you, head over to Strategic Boardroom. You can buy it right on the main page. Just click the link and I will sign it and send it to you. If you are overseas, your best bet is to get onto Amazon. I won't be able to sign it, but you get it on Amazon that way, and their fulfillment is just phenomenal. They will be able to get that to you. So everything that I wrote about in that book is what I'm going to be talking about in the context of the Viper framework, the Viper methodology. So the Viper method is an acronym. Let's see, we've got someone joining us. Hello, Paris, from San Antonio. Excellent. I spent a little bit of time down in San Antonio. I love it down there. I was at Randolph Air Force Base as a Marine. We were there at Marine Aerial Navigation School down there at Randolph Air Force Base. So I enjoyed it there. And I learned that in San Antonio, doesn't matter what type of restaurant you go into, they always have chips and salsa on the table. You go to Olive Garden, they will have chips and salsa on the table. I thought that was interesting. All right, so let's get into the Viper framework. The Viper framework, it's an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. So this framework, as we talked about, is a top-down framework. And Paris says that is very true. You do. You go to even if it's not Tex-Mex, everything is Tex-Mex. You go to the Chinese buffet, they will have chips and salsa on the tables. It's just kind of funny. You don't. I'm in Indiana, so you'd get chips and salsa at a Mexican restaurant. All right. So this is again the top-down approach. So we're going to be looking at this from vision to infrastructure, and then it feeds down to process, execution, and reporting. So let's get into this. So vision is where you want to go, right? And it starts by vision. Now, vision has 2 components. Vision is broken down into personal vision and business vision. Personal vision is just basically where is it that you want to go, right? Paris, where do you want to go? Haram, where do you want to go? Natasha, where do you want to go, right? Tingshan, where do you want to go in your personal life? It doesn't have anything to do with income generation. So I want you to think of metaphorically, you wake up tomorrow with, depending on where you're at, $30 million or 30 million euros or 30 million pounds in your bank account tomorrow. What do you want your day-to-day life to look like? Now, again, depending on how old you are, you still have to be a good steward of your money. Like, even if you're older, you still have to be a good steward of your money, because you just can't go out and spend your money like Justin Bieber. Okay. So you have to have a good understanding of what you want your day-to-day life look like. And you're still going to have to be productive. You're still going to have to be a good steward of money. So think about that. So if you wake up tomorrow, think about where do you want to go? Like, what do you want your life to look like? And this breaks down into individual relationships as well, is what do you want your personal relationship to look like with your partner, with your spouse, with your children, right? Maybe even what do you want your relationship to look like with fitness or wellness, or even your faith? Like, faith is a big deal for me. What would you want that to look like for you, if that's important to you? And the business vision is going to ask you, okay, cool, where do you want to go? The business vision is going to say, cool, how are you going to get there? Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's so many folks, and I'm not going to make a big point about this, because we are going to talk about business stuff here in just a second. So give me just a few minutes of grace before you're like, this guy's a windbag, I don't really want to listen to him anymore. Okay, maybe that's still true, but just hear me on this one thing. I have sat in dozens of mastermind groups, conferences, seminars, sitting in rooms with people who are making 6 and 7 figures a month net, and were completely unfulfilled in their life. And the reason for that is they were confusing achievement for fulfillment. And guess what they were more worried about? Even though they were completely unfulfilled in their life, rather than worrying about the fulfillment question, they were actually more worried about, well, how do I get an extra comma in my bank account, right? And I'm like, well, dude, you're literally making more money than you can possibly spend, and they're miserable in their life. And the reason for that is because they created a business vision before ever creating a personal vision. And when you create a business vision Before you create a personal vision, you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you, that sucks. I've been down that road. I spent too many days and weeks and months and years and decades of my life. And you're like, decades, really? Yeah, I'm 53. And you're like, wow, you don't look anywhere near 53, right? You can tell me, that's okay. Okay. But all kidding aside, I spent way too long focusing on the business vision and had a life that existed for the business. And I was missing it all. I was missing some of the best parts of life. So I'm just telling you, if you take nothing else away from today, please take time to define your personal vision. I'm going to give you a couple of hints, a couple of little ideas, and then we're going to move on to the business stuff. Okay. So just hang in there for another 60 seconds. Your personal vision, something that you consider is about coming up with a 100th birthday speech. Like you're turning 100 years old. What would you say, right? Who would you want to be in the room? What would you say, right? And what would you want others to say to you when you're done speaking? And what's the message that you'd like them to carry outside the room when you're done speaking? Okay. So I just want you to think about that in terms of a monumental, maybe 100-year, like some of you might be in your 20s. You're like, dude, that is just way too removed from my life. I can't imagine that, right? Okay, fine. If that's true, then say, all right, well, what's the next major milestone for you? Maybe you're getting ready to turn 40. Maybe you've got a child that's getting ready to graduate high school. Whatever the next milestone is for you, use that as your next point and start to think of what would that speech look like and use that to create your personal vision. All right. So that's your personal vision. Let's get into business vision. Business vision, when you're defining your business vision, again, we're talking big picture here and we're getting into more narrow details. So hang in there with me, but we're talking about 3 C's of business vision, 3 C's of business vision, and they are your core purpose, your core values, and your client avatar. Now, here's the thing. These 3 things, anytime that I have been brought in to a business where they've got struggles with their employees, they've got struggles in profitability, they don't have enough customers, they're struggling in one or more of these 3 areas. I can guarantee it. And I'm gonna show you what each of these 3 areas are. So again, we're talking foundational. So we're talking about being strategic. If you're coming here for tactics, you're going to be disappointed because you build the tactics off the stuff we're learning off of this strategy. And I'm telling you, it's kind of interesting because I've been watching the numbers. I can see the numbers on the call and I see the numbers go up and people hang out for a couple of minutes and then they leave. Now, maybe they're busy. That's fine, right? Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're going to come back, right? Sometimes they don't. But it's interesting how many people are looking for that nugget and they're like, oh, well, this is so basic. I'm not going to do it, right? Well, you're never going to get more advanced unless you're doing these basics. And I'm just telling you that if you're looking for the advanced stuff, but you're not doing the basics, that's how mastery is achieved, by doing those boring basic things over and over and over that you're willing to do that others are not willing to do. So I don't want to hear that, oh, I just get bored, I get shiny object syndrome, I just get distracted. That's fine. But again, remember what I talked about in the beginning of training your brain to be dialed in? This is what it's going to take. This is what it's going to take. All right. So let's talk about the 3 C's of business vision. So the 3 C's of business vision, the first one is core purpose. Core purpose is specifically what business are you in and what problems do you solve? And it's important that you are specific. So let me say that again. What specific business are you in and what specific problems do you solve? Don't just tell me you're a realtor. That tells me nothing. That tells me nothing. Like, okay, so do you sell residential properties or do you sell commercial properties? Well, yeah, I kind of do both. All right. Well, okay. Well, that's not helping me, right? It's not helping your case when you're trying to do all these different things. And the problem is when you're trying to do all these different things, the people get very distracted by what it is that you do. They don't feel that you're really the master of what it is that you do. Think about this for a second. Let's say that you needed heart surgery. Let's say that you need heart surgery, okay? Would you go to a surgeon that specializes in heart surgery or a surgeon that can do heart surgery and nose surgery and foot surgery and maybe will sell you some essential oils before you leave as well? The answer should be obvious. You want the expert, right? Well, think about that in terms of how your clients are perceiving you. So when you're saying, like, especially on social media, there was a guy who his core purpose, and I'm going to change his name, but his core purpose was he was a residential real estate investor. Like, that's what he was known for. And I think he did wholesaling, if I'm remembering right. And like, his name was, he called himself like Real Estate Ralph. Okay, not his real name, but Real Estate Ralph was known for this. And he even owned a specific color, right? His color was yellow. So Real Estate Ralph was known for being really, really good in this space, right? That's what he was known for. He owned the color yellow. So Real Estate Ralph, or Real Estate Ralphie, here he was, and he would post all this stuff about real estate all the time. And then out of the blue, he starts posting stuff about mushroom coffee. I was like, dude, what are you doing? And Real Estate Ralphie literally, in a moment, destroyed any brand recognition that he had. I'm like, dude, I am so confused. Like, did someone hijack your page? What are you doing? Selling me like $11 mushroom coffee at the expense of your brand. It made absolutely no sense. We're going to talk about that when we talk about strategic planning. But this is really important, that you know the core purpose of what it is that you do, and be obnoxious about that. Be obnoxious about what you don't do. All right. So that's your core purpose. Next is your core values. Your core values are what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business. Think about this in this context, right? Your core values help define your company culture, even if you're a company of one. Your core values define your company culture, and your company culture and your company brand are inextricably linked. What do I mean by company brand? Your company brand is what is experienced by the public, by your avatar. So when they see, like, when you drive by Starbucks, are you going to be driving by Starbucks and expect to hear like big speakers out front blaring like Megadeth music? No, that wouldn't make any sense, right? Like metal, like heavy metal, like that would make no sense. Like, wait a minute, that's not their brand. What? Like, it's so weird, right? That's why, like, they're very aligned in their core values. They know what they're about. They know what they're not about. So think about this in terms of your core values. Your values are, they're basically, your core values are values that you have, that where you're willing to get up and act. That's how you know something is a core value. I value peanut M&Ms. Am I willing to go to war over them? No. Like, someone breaks in and says, give me all your peanut M&Ms. I'm like, dude, they're on the table. Take them, right? Like, I'm not going to care that much. Someone comes in and tries to take my family, that's going to be a different problem for them, right? That's going to be a real problem for them, right? So that's why I'm saying, like, because that is a core value of mine. My family is a core value of mine, right? So I want you to think about this, and the reason why that's important is because your business is just an extension of you. And your core values of your business are an extension of your personal core values. So as you're bringing other people into your organization, and as you're attracting customers into your organization, you're going to want these people to be aligned with your core values. Am I making sense? Say, yes, Mark, I am absolutely making sense about core values. Even if you don't have yours defined, that's fine. But take the time to start to define these, because as you grow and as you're making a bigger impact on the world, your core values are going to start to squeak out in different places. I have my core values very well defined in Strategic Boardroom. You know why? Because it brings the right people that I want to work with. And guess what it also does? It repels the people I don't. Again, like I mentioned, there's people who already hopped off this call. Guess what? They were not my avatar. They were probably like, I don't want to, or again, they could be busy. That's fine. But let's just assume they weren't busy. And they're like, I hate this guy's face. I can't stand his voice. He thinks he knows everything. Whatever they think. And granted, maybe all those things are true. I don't know. But I genuinely like to help people. I genuinely want to educate people. That's why I don't generally charge for these. It helps me help as many people as possible. And that's why I do these, right? To align with my core value, education, educating and teaching other people. That's part of alignment with my core values. So again, I want you to just understand that it's like being magnetic, and magnetic is attracting, but it's also repelling. Okay. So that's why it's important to have your core values. Excellent. Thank you, Haram. So we talked about core purpose. We talked about core values. Now let's talk client avatar. Client avatar is who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? Who do you want to serve? And this kind of dials into like target market and target audience. So when you're starting to think about that, I want you to break that down into geographic, demographic, and psychographic. So this is pretty straightforward. From their geographics, where they are, right? So geographics is where they are. Demographics is who they are. Like again, so you got geographics is where they are, demographics is who they are, psychographics, that is how crazy they are, right? How psycho they are. No, I'm just kidding, right? So geographics is where they are, demographics is who they are, like are they married, are they single, are they old, are they young, are they rich, are they poor, are they educated, are they not educated, right? But psychographics is how they think and how they buy, how they think and how they buy. So when you're thinking about psychographics, I want you to think of the phrase ALIA, A-L-I-A. So you're thinking of their attitudes. What are their attitudes? What are their lifestyles? What are their interests? And what are their aspirations and goals? Think about this for a hot second, right? So, Paris, if you knew of someone, and some of you are just joining, just let us know where you're from and what kind of business that you have. So for those of you, like, again, if you knew, Paris, what someone's goals were, wouldn't it make sense that you might actually be able to create a relationship with that person and maybe help align with their goals? Wouldn't that make sense? Even if your product or service doesn't necessarily deliver their goals for them, right? It might be more of what you don't do. But the thing is that I think people are so focused on the sale and not about building relationships. I am significantly more interested in building a relationship than I am getting a sale, because a sale is a one-time thing. A relationship is forever. And that's why I want to know my folks. And later on, I'm going to invite you to my school community. And right now, there's no charge for it. And I'm bringing people into that school community who want to continue to have a conversation with me. And for those people who aren't interested in that, that's okay. That's fine, because they're probably not who I want to attract. But this is where volume handles a lot of things. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But start thinking about what attitudes do they have towards work? What attitudes do they have towards life? What attitudes do they have towards education? Right? Make it relevant. What are their lifestyles like? Are they a young, jet-setting type of couple? Or are they single? Are they married? Are they dog owners? Are they cat owners? Right? Dog and cat owners are, right? Are they coffee drinkers? Are they tea drinkers? Like, what do they do? Right? What are their interests? Are they interested in NASCAR? Are they interested in World Cup? Either way, once you understand their interests and you can get and have relationships with these people, that's why psychographics is so important. So you understand them, and now you can reach them much more clearly and have relationships with them, in not just in your marketing, but overall. So those are the 3 C's of business vision. Okay. So tell me, like, go ahead and put it in the chat. Is these 3 C's of business vision, which ones do you feel are really dialed in? Like they're like a 8, 9, or 10 from a 1 to a 10. And which one of these do you feel like, I've got some work to do? I really got some work to do, right? I will tell you my core purpose, and I've been teaching this for a while. I would say, like, yeah, if you asked me this time last year, I'd be like, yep, I'm a 9.5. And then I really started peeling it back about really what my core purpose is. And I love to educate. I love to bring strategy. I'm not a business coach. That's not what I do, but I do educate. Right, I do coach. I use a coach I use that as a type of training. Right, holding people accountable. So I use the tools of a coach for sure. And some people affectionately call me that. They'll call me coach. But am I a coach? No, I'm a strategist specifically. But what do? I educate, and I fundamentally save people a lot of time. I save people a lot of time from making mistakes that I've seen that are very apparent to me from top down. Okay, so I have this bizarre ability to go big picture down into details and very relevant details around the 4 core functions of business: lead gen, sales, operations, and accounting. And then I can come back out and we can tweak that again, just like a clock, like a someone who works on a clock, right? Or a watch, like a watchsmith, right? So these are the sorts of things that I do. And that's really important for you in terms of your core purpose and core values and client avatar. So for me, I will say I was at a 9, right? 9.5. And then I was like, I'm really kind of at a 7. And now I'm probably back at a 9.5 again, because I really took the time to write down my core purpose. So where do you feel you're at? I put that in the comment section. Where do you feel like you're really strong? Core purpose, core values, client avatar. You really know what you're really specific in those areas, and which ones do you need some help with and some work on. So again, you don't have to write it in there if you don't want. I will not blow you up, but I just want you to think about that. You're more than welcome to share that. All right. So that is vision. That is vision. That is personal vision. And that is business vision. Let's get to the I in the Viper methodology, which is infrastructure. We're going to start to pick up the pace here a little bit. So infrastructure is the bones of the business. It's the desks. It's the chairs. It's the software. It's the websites. It's your payment processing stuff. It's all the bones of your business, right? And it's all the boring stuff that people don't generally think about. So Hiram is saying your avatar is a 3. Oh, wow. Okay, good. So you got a little bit of work to do there. All right. Purpose is an 8. Value is an 8. Value is a 6. Core value is a 6. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So you got a little bit of work to do, especially with your client avatar. And when you get dialed in, Hiram, on your avatar, I'm telling you, it is like the world explodes, because all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm narrowing it down and getting more and more focused. And it's like more and more people start actually coming to you. You're like, how does this work? It's because you're much more specific in your marketing and how to actually find these people. So excellent. Good self-observation. So in terms of infrastructure, again, you got your desks, your chairs, your websites, all the things that are the bones of the business. So you might be thinking, I mean, this is a really, really critical part of the system of your business. It's absolutely crucial that you have infrastructure built out. You might be thinking, well, if that's so true, then why does vision come first? Well, let me put this in some context. Let's say that Hiram, okay, let's say that part of his vision is to lay on the beach in Spain, rubbing cocoa butter on his belly, okay, for 2 months out of the year. If he builds an infrastructure that's going to require him to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a horrible experience when he's trying to lay on the beach for 2 months out of the year rubbing cocoa butter on his belly, right? So you want to build an infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision, okay? After you build infrastructure, so we talked about vision, we talked about infrastructure, now we're going to talk about process. Process is how you do stuff, okay? It's from a tactical perspective and it's from a strategic perspective. Tactical is just what you do every day, right? It's how you do stuff, your standard operating procedures, your checklists, things like that, your day-to-day activities. It's your opening procedures, it's your closing procedures, it's how you prepare bank deposits, how you answer the phone, all the boring day-to-day stuff that really nobody ever really takes time to write down. That's what tactical process is from day to day. If I was to draw a box around infrastructure and tactical process, that is the business system. That's it. It's no more complex than that. And I want you to think about this, like with this system, this is the, Hiram says, sounds like paradise already. Right. Yeah, laying on the beach, rubbing cocoa butter on your belly. The tactical part of process, or that the infrastructure and tactical process, like think of that as like the battleship. Like that's a warship, and that's sitting in the harbor. Strategic part of process, that's strategic planning. That is what takes the warship and the battleship out of the harbor and says, let's go out and make some trouble, rather than just being moored to the harbor and then just getting battered around by whatever economic winds happen to be blowing through at the time, right? This is about being strategic. This is about taking this boat out of the harbor. And to do that, you need 3 P's, and that is people, purpose, and promotion. People, purpose, and promotion. So the people part of strategic planning is, who are you going to need? It's very, very common for entrepreneurs, okay? And again, I know some of you had mentioned like you are a solopreneur and you want to stay that way. Totally fine. But here's the problem with that, is that when an opportunity comes along and you have that idea, you know, that business idea of when you're standing in the shower, right? Ask me how I know. So I've got all these business ideas. Well, the problem is, entrepreneurs generally, they go, oh, how could I do that? They think of how instead of who. How can I do that instead of how can I do this thing, rather than who do I need to help me with this? Who do I need to help me with this? Not how can I not how can I do it? That's what a true entrepreneur does, is they're out there finding people to do the things that they're not great at. Okay, so I want you to think about this, not just the people that you're going to need in your organization, but who are you actually going after? This might be part of your strategic planning, which would be part of purpose, which maybe you're going after a whole new avatar. Where did you hear that before, right? And the 3 C's of business vision, right? Maybe you have been going after single individuals and now you're going after married couples, right? Maybe you're going after younger people and now you're going after a slightly older crowd, right? Whatever part of the strategic plan happens to be. This is really, really important. So when you're starting to think of the people component of your strategic plan, you have to think about that. And especially if you are trying to scale, there's just not enough hours in the day for you to be effective and you're going to get burned out. There's just like yesterday afternoon, man, I had a call yesterday. I did, it was Business Plans 101 and I was just baked. I had nothing left in the tank. And so I actually closed my eyes for a little bit and on the other side it was actually fine. But I've got a lot on my plate right now. So I'm just saying, like, for you guys, I want you to think about the people that you need in your, not only that you're going after in your strategic plan, but also the people that you need inside your organization, right? And those could be salespeople, those could be other types of folks. So think about that, not think of who, not how, right? Who do I need, not necessarily how can I do it? Then look at the purpose. What's the strategic purpose? What am I trying to do? Am I trying to increase my level of sales? Am I trying to expand my market share? Am I trying to vertically integrate into a whole new market with a whole new avatar, right? What's the purpose? And this is where you have to align your strategic purpose with your core purpose. Oh my gosh, here it comes back around again like a bad penny. That core purpose. Why is that important? Because if your strategic plan doesn't align with your core purpose, it's going to be weird, right? It would be as if Starbucks started selling chainsaws. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why is Starbucks coffee selling chainsaws? I don't know, because they can. Yeah, but it doesn't make sense, right? It gets very fragmented. And this is where you have to have a little bit of discernment and say that every opportunity that comes to you, some of them might just be truly nothing more than distractions. And that's where you have to have some discernment. So this is why really getting clear on what your core purpose is and writing that down so the core purpose of today doesn't become a different core purpose for tomorrow. Okay? And again, ask me how I know. So the last piece is promotion. Promotion is just communication. It's communication not only outside your organization, but also inside your organization. Yes, promoting it to the people, to a new avatar, or a new market, through marketing, through advertising, through networking. That's really critical. But also the promotional piece internally. Communicating that with, maybe, again, if you've got staff, you have to say the same things a lot. You have to repeat yourselves a lot. That's just the nature of the game. Don't hate it. Just, I'm telling you, that's the way it goes. So you have to promote it internally a lot. You have to have these frequent communications with your suppliers, with your vendors. Okay, these are your subcontractors. These are the sorts of conversations you have to do, and you have to do that a lot. Okay, so that is part of strategic planning. The last piece, so that is the component of process, which is tactical and strategic. So we covered vision, infrastructure, process. Now let's get to execution. Execution, this is really important. This is a quote that I really like by General Patton. A good plan violently executed now is far better than the perfect plan executed next week. And the reason why I have execution as part of this whole overall strategic planning thing is because most plans fall apart in their execution. And the reason for that, and as much as I love you, my fellow brothers and sisters in entrepreneurship, you love to have those to-do lists of 37 items, like that you're going to get all done today, right? Like, I know who you are. So, right? Like, can anybody relate to this? So if so, let me know how many items are actually on your to-do list, and I promise you I will not hold any judgment against you. Because again, this is exactly the way that I operate. And the problem is that when you have too many priorities, it has the same impact as having no priorities. So you work a little bit over here, and then you get distracted, and you work a little bit over here, and all you're doing is just wandering back and forth among 40 different priorities, never really getting any main traction. Well, this is one of the main things about having these types of priorities. I break these down into a daily 5. Now, the daily 5 are up to 5 highly specific actions that you're going to take that are going to move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan, either one. Okay. So what does that mean? Does it mean check email No. Does it mean check voicemail? No. It's going to be 5 needle moving activities that are going to move the needle towards my whatever it is. Last year, I published 5 books. I published 5 books. The Time Wealthy Advantage, this one here, and 4 smaller guides that went with them. And each one has its own ISBN. They have their own, they are their own individual book that where you can buy books that where you can buy them all individually if you want them. Okay. My point is I was able to do that because I was very clear about my daily actions and activities. And I also started a PhD program last year, right, for organizational psychology. I also read 42 books last year. You might be thinking, holy crap, like, how did you actually do that, right? But yeah, I had a very, very busy and productive year, but it was probably one of the best years I've had. I mean, honestly, I've had a really good string of years lately, and that's because I incorporate the daily 5. Now, for me, it's a daily 3. I really like a daily 3 because for me, 5 is almost like it's just at the very limits of what I can do every day. And if I did a daily 5 every day, day after day, I'm burned out after like 2 days. I just can't keep that pace up. So for me, a daily 3 is much more sustainable. Your mileage may vary, but I'm telling you, try not to have like a daily 9. You're like, well, I can be twice as effective. Try a daily 5 and then whittle your way down, from there, and find how much more effective you can actually be. Let's see here. Paris says, I had to stop doing to-dos because it felt like failure when they didn't get done. So I completely agree. Yes, Paris, you are a perfect test subject for the daily 5. Okay, try this out because you're right. When you had that same to-do list, you're just like, well, I got the same one from yesterday. I may as well just look at that. Why even bother looking at it? Okay, that's 100% right. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have necessary things that are important, right, on your to-do list, but the things that are actually needle moving, and they don't need to be the same things every single day, but they should move the needle toward your strategic, your core purpose, right, your business vision. They should move you toward your business vision or your strategic plan. One of the two. It's really all that simple. Okay, so really, really good. So Haram is saying 30. Oh, is that on your list? 30 things to do, right? I haven't finished one book in 8 years. Yeah, I get it, and that is because I'm really intentional about that. One quick thing, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take just a 30-second detour here. But one of the reasons why I hear a lot of people say, "Oh man, I can't read. I just get to the end of a paragraph and I don't even know what I read. My mind wanders too much." One of the things that I learned from a guy, his name is Jim Quick, and I get nothing for referring the guy. I absolutely think the guy is a genius. If you go on, you might find him on YouTube. I think that's actually where I found him. He goes through a whole thing on speed reading. And the problem that he recognizes that our brains, especially for those of us who are ADHD prone, and we have this beautiful brain and it moves, unfortunately, too fast for the way that we have to read. Or for our ability to read. He talks about upgrading your reading. So when I first was reading, I didn't recognize how slow I read. And because I read so slow, my mind would be allowed to wander. It's like driving down the interstate at 100 miles an hour. You're not messing with the radio. You're not messing with your phone. You're not messing with anything else. You drive through a subdivision at 5 miles an hour. You're looking at everything else, right? The problem is we don't know how to read. We have to train our eyes, train our brains to read faster. And that's what speed reading has done for me. So what I'm saying is take his course. It's literally the best $200 you will ever spend ever on yourself. And it's a 21-day course. It took me maybe a month and a half to go through the whole thing, like truly start to finish. My reading went from 125 words per minute, which was abysmally slow. Oh my gosh, I barely want to admit that, to 540, and sometimes over 600. So I'm just telling you, so that's words per minute rather. So it's 130 words per minute to over 600 words per minute at times. So I'm just telling you, best money I ever spent. So really, really like that guy. His name is Jim Quick, Kwik. And you can find him pretty much anywhere. So again, I get nothing for referring him. I think he's a great dude though. Really, really smart. Okay. So that is the execution piece. Let's get to reporting. Reporting is just letting you know how you did, right? And it tracks 2 things. It tracks your lead metrics and it tracks your lag metrics. Your lead metrics are based on your actions and activities. Your lag metrics are the results of those actions and activities. So again, what do you, out of these two things, what do you have the most control over? What do you think? You don't really have, I don't have any control of how many people log on to this session. I also don't have any control over how many people stay on this session. I do have control over how interesting I make it. I do have control over engaging with you guys and my actions and activities, right? So I have direct control over my lead metrics. I have indirect control over my lag metrics. So I want to make sure that you guys are measuring both lead and lag metrics. Don't just say, well, I'm going to get this number of sales. You don't have any control over how many sales you get. You only have control over how many actions and activities you take that could lead up to the sale, right? Well, how much marketing did you put out there? How many people did you follow up with that were previous customers or previously interested? And again, most of you, just telling you, I'm not trying to be mean here, but most salespeople are horrific at following up with people. Like horrific with an H, not good. Okay, so I'm just saying, like, you have to track both lead and lag metrics. So that's the systems component. Now let's get into the psychology component, right? This is lessons on leadership. So systems are really important, but the systems are only going to get you so far. Systems are important because they bring stability and consistency and accountability, which is certainly important. Systems are limited, is that they can't make subjective decisions. They are not great at adapting to market conditions, especially rapid market changes. Coming up with creative solutions is not really the purpose of a system. And establishing and maintaining human connections, it's not what systems do, right? You know, AI can replicate that, but at the end of the day, it's really truly about maintaining the human connection. So again, when we're talking about the business approach here, we talk systems. Now let's talk psychology. When you're looking at psychology, there's both an individual and personal psychology, and then you've got a business and organizational psychology, okay? Sorry, there we go. So when you're looking at your personal self, your personal psychology, you're looking at things like self-worth, self-management, and even things like limiting beliefs. This is your individual personal psychology that you bring to the table, right? It's all of our individual brands of crazy, okay? So we all have our wonderful brands that we bring to the table. That's personal psychology. Business and organizational psychology looks at things from an external and an internal perspective. Let me break those two things down. From an external perspective, you're looking at you got external and internal, right? From business psychology. External, you look at things like buying psychology and vendor psychology, which is even around negotiations and even dealing with actual politics. And trust and know, as sure as God made little green apples, the bigger you get and the more profits you make, you are going to be attracting more political attention. It's just the way it is. So don't feel like, oh, I don't do politics. Politics might do you, right? Even if you don't want to do it. When it comes to internal business psychology, there's things along the lines of management and leadership, and they are not the same things. Management is about differences. Leadership is about unity and unification behind a common message. And creating that vision, whereas management is about getting things done. So you have to understand that, are they related? Sure. Are they the same? Absolutely not, but they are related. So this is what I want to talk about specifically with leadership, because leadership is so incredibly important. And this is where I look at leadership. And again, as I go through my organizational psychology classes, I'm noticing how much leadership plays a role. And I look at things through three pillars: trust, vision, and communication. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but from a perspective, like, you have to have their trust. If people don't trust you, I don't care how clear your vision is and how good of a communicator that you are and how good of an orator you are and how well you can type up compelling emails. If people don't trust you, they will not follow you. If they don't trust your character and if they don't feel that you're competent, they will not follow you. The fastest way to build trust is by demonstrating competence, by showing people and demonstrating that you know what you know, that you know what you're doing. That's the fastest way to build trust, is by demonstrating competence. The fastest way to destroy trust is to demonstrate a lack of character. Let people think that you're dishonest. Let people think that what you say and what you do are two different things. Let people think that you're just kind of a creep, right? Like, I came on here and started, like, I have an amazing bride and we have an amazing relationship. But if I got on here and started talking about, like, a girlfriend that I had on the side, you'd be like, dude, what? Like, that's not, dude, you're kind of creepy, right? Again, because it erodes character. So it doesn't even matter what I know and how amazing I am on any other side. If you start eroding your character, you're going to lose your trust, right? You're going to lose people's trust, and you may not even know why they don't trust you. So trust is absolutely critical, but so is vision. Having a shared vision about being an effective leader also requires them to bring them in and along to a shared vision. A shared vision is so important. Think about this. People are much more likely, like Haram, Paris, right? Like people are much more likely to carry a ball that they helped inflate, right? Tingshan, like, right, Natasha? Like if I have brought you along and asked for your opinion on things, if I said, hey, look, this is a problem that we have, I could really use your help in solving it. And even if we don't take your solution, but just the fact that I got your input would really matter to your people. And it makes you a far more effective leader. So again, people may trust you, and you might, again, be a really good communicator, but if you don't have a vision, they're going to be like, what are we doing here anyway? Like, what's the whole point of doing this at all? And especially younger generation, millennials, they really want to feel like they've got a purpose in what they're doing far beyond just making money. The last piece is communication. And again, people might trust you. You might have a really clear vision of where you're going, and they may truly even want to get there. But if you're a bad communicator, right, you don't communicate well, you text in all caps, right, or you're shouting at them, or you don't communicate enough, or more, or frequently enough, people are you're not going to be as effective as a leader as you could be. So understand this: trust, vision, and communication. It takes all three, just like equal legs of a stool. So you might be thinking, man, this is all great and all, but does leadership really matter that much? Look, I'm right now I'm writing my next book, my 9th book, called Leader Boss. And it's about the interplay between caring and candor. And some of you might be like really caring individuals, which is great. The fact that you're too caring, though, is that people walk all over you. Okay, so tell me, are you that kind of person where you're like so caring that people tend to walk all over you? I was that kind of person, right? The problem was because I didn't bring enough candor. I didn't bring enough honesty. I didn't bring enough integrity to the relationship as a leader, which means I need to tell you if you're if you're not performing well, I need to tell you. And I'm doing that not because I care about you. It's not because I'm trying to avoid conflict, but I need to tell you the truth. Now, the problem is people who have too much candor, people will not do anything. They're just going to treat you like a tyrant. And they're like, dude, I'm just here to get my paycheck. Don't ask me any questions. Don't ask me to work 1 minute longer than after 5 o'clock. They don't give you any discretionary effort. That's not my job, right? That's what you're going to hear when you have too much candor. So to be an effective leader, you have to have an equal mix of caring and candor. And that's what it takes to be an effective leader boss. So that's what the premise of my next book is going to be. So Haram says, my communication needs work. Yeah, and I'll tell you, man, it's not easy. I really had to work. I think naturally I was a good communicator, but I really wasn't great at following up. So as a result, they didn't trust me. They didn't trust that what I was saying and that they would get the support that they needed. So again, that comes to consistency. There's levels of trust beyond the scope of today, but there's different levels of trust, which is around competence and character, but also consistency, commitment, caring, right? There's other areas of trust that really are important. And if I don't bring all those areas of trust, people won't trust me and I wouldn't know why. So communication, Paris is saying, is there such a thing as over communicating? I actually think there is. And I know people say like, well, no, you can never over communicate. I do think there is time where communication does need to stop because they don't need to know that, right? Where over communicating in my mind is either oversharing or telling them details that are not relevant to them. Okay. So I think there is an area of discernment that you need to have as a leader, that there's just certain things that you shouldn't be sharing, because there's some things that might be trade secrets. There might be other things that are relevant. And again, even like Google, which is literally the most transparent company, I mean, probably in the history of modern companies, they're very transparent with their people. They have a very flat leadership model, and they will even admit that they are as transparent with their employees as they can be, right? So they don't share every detail, right? But they do share as many relevant details that are relevant to as many players as possible within the organization. Okay, so I do believe that you can over communicate things, and especially when it's time to like when you're saying too much, sometimes it's just time to stop talking and move on. Okay, it's a really, really good question. I like that. Thank you, Paris. So when we're talking about level 5 leaders are so John Maxwell, who's written a gazillion books on leadership, they do start to get a little repetitive. So I feel like I'm like John Maxwell'd out for the moment, but his stuff is good. But he talks about a level 5 leader as a pinnacle leader. Like this is the type of leader that's generating and creating other leaders, which I think is great. It's a good premise. Jim Collins, who wrote not quite as many as John Maxwell, but he wrote Good to Great, Great by Choice, Built to Last. So he wrote a lot of books around publicly traded companies that also had really good leadership, and they had these massive growth spikes that did really, really well over long periods of time. And so he described them as a leader that put the organization first. And when you had these high level leaders that were not like all about them, but all about the company, these companies were significantly more profitable. They grew much faster. They had a very strong company culture. And you want to guess why? Yeah, because they had defined core values, right? And that was all around really good leadership. So here's just a couple examples. Amgen, Intel, Microsoft, Southwest, you can see how fast their growth was over the course of 30 years. Like, look at Southwest Airlines, 63 times the market. Are you kidding me? So if you put $1,000 into Southwest versus $1,000 in the overall stock market, like as an index, you would have had a 63 time more return in Southwest Airlines than in the market. Are you kidding me? Like 63 times, not 63%, 63 times. Okay, that's crazy numbers. And the interesting thing about this is the 100 best places to work lists when they get published are frequently, they have the highest stock returns. And those are companies like Hilton Hotels, Marriott Hotels, Google, Southwest Airlines, right? These are really, really popular companies. Starbucks, these are really good companies that have really, really good leadership. So leadership does make a huge difference. And because growth requires change, leadership is what manages that change. So again, I hear this all the time, man, how do I get my people to care as much as I do? Or I feel like you should be much further along in your business. Chances are you probably have to work on your leadership skills. Okay. So we're going to put the fries in the bag on that one. But one last point I want to make is, look, the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. And the team cannot go faster than you as the leader. So if you're not progressing as quickly as you want to be progressing, chances are it's you. Okay. I don't mean to be weird about it, but it probably is you, especially if your people are not progressing as fast as you would hope them to be, right? So really, really important. So that is both the systems and the psychology. So the next piece here in the agenda is the 4 core functions of business. This is very true in every business. So the 4 core functions are around lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. Lead gen, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey through your company happens in that order. First, they experience your lead generation, then they experience the sales, and keep in mind that they are already forming an opinion of what their customer experience is like even before they've considered fulfillment, even before they've gotten into the operational function. So you've got to consider this of all 4 of these functions and how these things interact with one another. This is called basically general systems theory in psychology, right? It's how the systems interact with one another, not just pulling one thing apart and looking at that, right? So earlier on, I think it was you, Haram, that was talking about, I really need the help with sales. Realistically, you probably need help in lead generation and sales because those things are both interrelated. You cannot separate them and think that the person's just going to experience one area of lead generation. And this is also why I'm not a big fan of marketing companies just handling your marketing just like they handle everybody else's marketing, because it doesn't differentiate you enough. Okay. So not saying you have to bring it in-house, but I want to make sure that you're working with someone who can help you with differentiation, because that's what's going to really drive your pricing. So now we're going to be talking about scaling and growing. All right. So when you're looking to grow, when you're looking to scale, let's go back to the 4 core functions of business. When you're looking at your lead generation function, this is when you're looking at targeting your client avatar. Where have you heard client avatar before? That's right. Back in the 3 C's of business vision: your core purpose, your core values, and your client avatar. So when you have your client avatar, you know exactly who you want to work with. And it's also much easier for you to direct your marketing towards, right? Because you know their geographics, you know their demographics, you know their psychographics, you know their ALEA, which is what? Here's a quick review. Their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. You know those things about them, so you can have a relationship with them. You can have conversations with them about that. All right? And these are the people that are massively that are just crazy fans for you, and these are the clients that are going to bring most amount of money with the least amount of drama. And when they know that they feel that they know you well, again, I had several people so I'm down to like this core number of people that are watching this call right now, which is interesting. Those of you who have stuck in here for this long, right? You probably are part of my tribe. Like, you are probably part of the people that I really would enjoy working with. Not necessarily that we will, but just generally like, hey, cool, we might be able to work together at some point in time. Okay. I'm just saying, like, recognizing why this is so important, because your conversations with people really are the opening salvo to the entire experience that your customers are going to have. And you don't just want customers who are satisfied. That is like the base standard. When you went to McDonald's, were you like, okay, I'm left and I'm satisfied, right? You might even say, wow, that was actually a decent burger. That was a good burger, right? So you're like, okay. So you went from satisfied to good to, could you imagine going, oh my gosh, that was literally the best experience at McDonald's I've ever had in my life ever? Probably not. Has those words ever been said? You know why? Because they don't worry about differentiation. They're not really interested in that. They're worried about volume. However, if someone said, wow, that was like the best meal I've ever had, the best experience I've ever had, you have now created a raving fan. And that, in telling you, is something that is kind of the pinnacle, the cup that many customers want. They want to feel valued, and many companies try to find those raving fans. So I'm going to give you a quick homework assignment. I'm going to take myself down from here so you can take a screenshot of this. But these are the four, we're talking about the 4 core functions of business, but these are the 15 reasons why people buy. So I want you to take a screenshot of this and promise me, or promise yourself, you don't have to promise me anything, but promise yourself that you are going to do this with the 15 reasons why people buy. These are about making money. People will buy because they want to save money. They'll buy because they want to save time, avoid effort, escaping pain. They want more comfort. Well, let me back up. Escaping pain could be emotional pain, physical pain, right? Could be spiritual pain. More comfort. They will buy for better health. And you might say, well, it'll bring better health. Well, how about freeing up their time so they can go to the gym, right? Or freeing up their time so they maybe can actually make a healthy meal at home, or just have less stress in their life. How could you help them feel more love or gain praise, increase their status with their current family or tribe or friends, right? People will buy for truth. They will buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. They will buy for growth. They will buy for novelty. They will buy to be in more control or perceived control. And they will also buy to feel like they are in contribution to others. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about this for a hot second. And I want you to think, how do you directly or indirectly, and that's the key, directly or indirectly help people make money? How do you directly or indirectly help people save money? How do you directly or indirectly help people save time and avoid effort, escape pain? Right? And I want you to come up with as many ways, like try to come up with 10 reasons under each one of these 15 categories. And all of a sudden you have 150 different reasons why people are going to want to buy your product or service, even if it's only indirectly. Make sense? This is really going to massively help you in your marketing. This is really going to help you when you're reaching out to people, and not just in your marketing, but also in your sales process. So when you have to kind of think on the fly a little bit, you've already thought these things through. Making sense, right? one of the main things that I do as a strategist is I save people lots of time because I read and research so often. Well, guess what? I know you don't have the time to read and research like I do. And you don't really have the interest in reading and research like I do. You rely on guys like me, guys and gals like me, to bring you the information that's been distilled down so it's usable for you. That's exactly what I do as a strategist. I look at your skills, your knowledge, your skills and ability. I may add some more knowledge, give you some more skills, add to your abilities, and look at this war planning table and go, okay, right? Now let's come up with a strategy based on what we have. That's what I do. That's what I do for companies. That's what I do for solopreneurs. Okay. So this is going to help you get really clear in all the different ways that you can help your different customers. Okay. So that is probably your best piece of homework that you can do for yourself. So when it comes to your lead generation function, everything needs to support your lead generation function, because the truth is you can have the best, most efficient business. You could be an absolute paragon of virtue. Your sales techniques so dialed in, you could sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. The truth is you can never, ever, ever take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead generation. So if you're looking to grow your business and you're looking to grow it quickly, if you're looking at lead generation activities, it's probably going to need to occupy 60 to 70% of your daily activity, right? Or if you've got a salesperson, or lead generation person, that needs to be entirely their activity. Like they are drumming up leads and they are calling old ones. And if someone has spent more than a few dollars with you, you need to be on the phone with them, sending them, and not just, hey, will you buy my stuff, but leading with value, saying, hey, I understand you're a World Cup fan. Hey, did you know that the World Cup is coming to New Jersey or whatever, right? Like keep the conversation open with them. Keep the relationship open with them, right? And bring them value. Again, what I would say is 4 to 1. 4 pieces of value. Hey, have you heard about the new shingle that's coming out? Right? And you might go, why would I care about that? Well, if you're ever looking to replace a shingle, this might be relevant to you, right? Don't always make it relevant to your business though, but make it relevant to them. That's why it's important to have a relationship with your people and have a good CRM, part of your infrastructure, right? Have a good customer resource management tool so you can keep track of all their different nuances about what they like and what they don't like. And don't call them Mr. Call them Joe, right? Just people like that, right? Things like that. So the lead generation piece leads directly into the sales function, and it just continues the conversation already started by the lead generation function. And it understands that effective selling is not about holding people's it's not about holding people's heads underwater until they say yes. It's about finding solutions. It's about bringing them along for the ride and saying, cool, tell me what kind of issues that you're having, and I'll see if we're a fit. That's it. I'm not gonna hold your head underwater. You can make your own decision. Just understand that, like this is the way it is. And people get so turned off by all the salesy stuff, like just beating people, like just punching them in the mouth with birthday cake. Like, come on, man. Like, you don't have to be that way. Just give them a reason, give them some space, and allow them to come to their own decision. People need time for acceptance sometimes. Sometimes people need time for acceptance that they need to make the purchase. They just have to work through it on their own a little bit. And you being overly aggressive is not going to help the situation. You've got lead generation, you've got sales. The next one is operations. Operations, if you're going to get stuck, you're going to get stuck in the operational function. And generally, you get stuck being a website developer, you get stuck being a roofer, you get stuck being a baker, you get stuck being a website maker, right? Whatever the thing is, if you're going to get stuck, this is generally where you get stuck, and that's in the operational function. If you're going to ignore something, you're going to ignore the accounting. Okay? And it sounds something like this. Well, I've got more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing okay. I have a degree in accounting, folks, and I have said those very words. So I'm just telling you, if you're going to ignore something, it's generally the accounting function. And that's why, again, I have an accounting degree, but I'm the least qualified person to do my accounting, because guess what? All 4 of these things are not the same skills. So this is why you're going to need individuals in your organization. And when I see solopreneurs who are completely closed off to the idea of bringing in other people into their organization, look, you're too exhausted to do the accounting. You're too exhausted to do your own bookkeeping. You're not as effective as when you're trying to do all four of these, because these are all very different sets of skills. And here's the problem. I get a lot of entrepreneurs who come to me who are really smart and they have a really good work ethic. The problem with that is that they're really smart and they have a really good work ethic. And they think that any problem that shows up is their problem to solve. And that becomes a real problem. So just because you're smart doesn't mean that's your job to do it. You have to start thinking of, who do I need to bring into the organization that can do this for me? Even if you don't, like, okay, I don't have the budget for it now, but work towards that. Work towards handing that stuff off to other people. Okay. So Paris is saying, this is good. I have a solution for what people need. That's exactly right. When you're talking about the 15 reasons why people buy. Haram, you're saying, I wish I did Southwest. I wish I did Southwest more. I was aggressive with the S&P 500 and Tesla. Listen, I mean, you have to manage your risk, right? And that's okay. Don't regret the returns that you got. I don't know. I mean, you probably, if you were in the S&P 500, you probably did pretty well, especially if you were in it over the last 30 years. But because these things are not all the same skill sets. So we're talking about lead generation, sales, operations, accounting. This is why your core values have to be so dialed in, because you can interview better, you can hire better, you can coach and counsel other people better when the core values are the rules of engagement that everyone in your organization knows by. And termination is much easier. If it's just not a good fit in your core values, look, you can let them go, and it's okay. It sets the tone for meetings, it defines the company culture, and it unbelievably raises your personal level of commitment. Right? So remember, you're not the only one making decisions in your organization, and trust and know that if your core values are not defined, they will be defined, but generally they're defined by the strongest personality that's in the room. And if that's not always you, that's a problem. So consider really taking the time to define and write down and lead with your core values, as every single time you have a meeting, bring up one of your core values and discuss it for a few minutes. Okay. So one last piece, and we're going to be wrapping up here, is growing by addition versus growing by multiplication. If you want to grow by addition, listen, you can bring on new clients and you can bring on more gadgets and tricks and things like that, and more apps that are going to help you be more efficient. But if you really want to, that's growing by addition. But if you really want to grow by multiplication, you have to bring other people into your organization. And that's why you need to be an effective leader. So if you want to grow, and especially if you want to scale, you have to have the right systems in place. You have to have great leadership and great individual and organizational psychology. Your lead generation function has to be 60 to 70% of your actions and activities overall in your organization, because you're just not, if you're not doing the lead generation function well, you're just going to struggle. Most businesses do not do this well. And finally, hire and develop leaders, and bring and develop these people inside your organization at high levels. So the last piece here is just some resources that I have and setting you up for success beyond today. Now, again, in the beginning, I asked you to seek knowledge to understand versus seeking knowledge to take action. I'm not going to make you write it in the comments section, but you're welcome to share it if you like. But what are you going to do differently? What things are you specifically going to take action on? That's great. You might say, yeah, this was great. Thanks so much. Great. But how is it going to be different for you tomorrow? That's what I'm more interested in. Thank you for the accolades and all that stuff, but I'm beyond that at this point, because I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because I want to make sure that your life gets changed. Okay. If you are interested, hang on one hot second. So I got a question here. Oh, hold on a second. So I'm going to share with you the school community, but someone's got a question first. Haram is asking, what about AI versus employees? I use AI for a lot of things that I can't do. Look, AI has got its place. And trust and know, like, I have an AI solution that I offer different restaurants for being able to take orders directly through a portal in Meta, right? So, like, I use AI personally, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with the agents to do some repetitive type work. Where I draw the line is when people will pretend that is a real human being, and they give them real names, And listen, I don't like that. I don't like feeling duped. I was on a call one time, and I'm telling you, at the end of it, I was 50-50 if the person that I was talking to was actually a human or an AI generation. I still don't know. And because of that, I will never contact them again because I just don't know. The problem was it was a delay. The delay that like it was like I would talk and then there would be this like awkward like 3 to 4 second delay that would happen and I'm like, what is going on here? It just didn't make any sense. And they wouldn't come on camera, so it makes me realize I mean, I'm almost certain it was AI. But the thing was, like, don't pee on my head and call it rain. I don't like feeling, and no one likes to feel like they've been like duped. So if you're using it as a automation tool, absolutely. But just make sure that you're using it appropriately and you're not misrepresenting yourself with it. Okay. Haram is saying, I'm going to focus more on the avatar. I think that would be a really good place for you to start. Most people need to do work on the 3 C's. Okay. So that is that. So let me go. I'm going to go ahead and put this up. I know you've got a big long question, Paris. Let me go ahead and put this up first. And then I'm going to put the link for my school community. It does not cost anything right now. So if you are interested, you can join me there and you can reach out, ask questions. There's no cost to it right now. There are costs if you're wanting access to the courses that I'm going to be putting in there. There's going to be the classroom. There's going to be the boardroom. I'm going to have other things, which are going to be the den and the war room. Like there's going to be other things that are going to be in there that may interest you. So, but right now for being in the community, that is everything that, if you want to join that. So I'm just going to put that up there. The link is there. Let me go ahead and answer Paris's question. It's a long one. Okay. So I have a question, but first I want to give some context if I am allowed. So currently I am unemployed, was let go last Thanksgiving, and now I am working on my MUA certification, makeup artist. Okay, very good. I have to pretend I knew what that meant. Been in school almost 2 years, and I will be certified this summer. I have no knowledge in sales, but I understand social media. Can I use that to grow my business alone, or do I need to take a more aggressive approach alongside social media? I'm trying to become my own boss, but I want to be wise. Okay, so this is a really, really good question, Paris, and I'm really glad that you brought this up. So one of the things that I like to do, and when I'm looking, when I see people try to get into doing their own lead generation, yes, you can do this on social media. It's a slog though. Like I'm just telling you, like if you're going to do this, you're going to be posting and doing a lot. And people are like, "Oh, I post every day." Like, okay, that's fine, but you probably need to be doing like 15 a day. And there's certain platforms that have no problem with you doing it. Like Instagram has no problem with you posting as many times as you want. I don't think that I know TikTok kind of limits certain things and whatever, and those algorithms always change. But like for me, one of the things that I do is I do a webinar every day. I do this every day. And so that means on average, I'm doing 1 webinar per day, sometimes 7 per week. So, and that's roughly for an hour and a half at a time. And I carve those things up and put those out on social media. But most people this is a main lead generation source for me. I'm just cards on the table. This is one of my main lead generation sources. Is it my only lead generation source? No. I like to have my primary and I like to have a secondary that I'm always working on. Why is that? Because if this one stops working, and I've been hanging my hat on this one solely, and like for you, you're trying to use social media, well, it's going to be, and this is a really broad answer to some specific things that you need to know about. And unfortunately, just given our constraint of time, I'm going to give you just one piece of advice, and it's important that you know this. I like to fill up one media channel as much as I possibly can before I go into the next media channel. Okay? Whenever I have worked with, let's say it's a local business, and the local business would be like, they're like struggling for sales. And I'm like, well, what have you tried? And they're like, well, we've done a little bit of billboards. We've had a little bit of radio. We've tried some local cable. We've done a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm like, okay, Like, what do you mean by a little bit? Well, we had a billboard out on the bypass, and then we had, 3 radio ads that ran at 3 o'clock in the morning, for like a month. And then we did, I'm like, oh my gosh, just stop. Just stop. Okay. The problem is that people look at their marketing like a salt shaker, and they just kind of sprinkle all over these various channels. So this is why it's really important to know your client avatar, to know where they're going to live. Chances are, if you have a very specific brand and you have a visual brand, like you being a makeup artist, like that's going to be important. So Instagram is probably, important. And those social media, like Pinterest and those that which are very visual brands, those are probably going to be more like where you're more likely to find your avatar. Okay. But just know, like, how are you going to differentiate yourself? Because differentiation is a problem, because there's a lot of other people out there who are not going to have any training in makeup artistry and call themselves makeup artists. Think of 2020 when everybody became a coach, right? That's why I started distancing myself, even though it like says coaching on my wall. I started distancing myself from coaches and started calling myself a strategist, because that's really what I do anyway, right? I don't really want people to call me a coach. I want people to call me and refer to me as a strategist, because that's what I do, right? I'm an educator. I educate, I inform. And then once they've been informed, they kind of tell me where they're at and where they want to go. I'm like, cool. Now we can draw a strategy. Now that I know what you know and I know what tools you have in your toolbox, now I can create strategy. For you, like, it's going to be really important for you to differentiate yourself in terms of how you're different from every other person that's doing the same thing out there that has lots of other followers and stuff like that. Okay. So fill up one channel at a time before you spill into the next channel, but always have a secondary channel that you're working on. So 85% of your effort into one or two, like basically media channels, and not necessarily, and then maybe another approach over here, which might be wedding venues, or another thing over here, which might be, local plays and stuff like that, right? So you always want to have a secondary one, and don't just rely on one primary one, because if that primary one goes away, and you have nothing else to fall back on, you're dead in the water until you start figuring out another way of generating leads. So I know it was kind of a wonky answer. I hope you got some value out of that one, but that's what I'm looking for. So, I understand. Very helpful. Thank you so much. Okay. Yep. So again, if you'd like to continue the conversation in school, bring it up in the room. Happy to have conversation with you via message. But that is all that I have, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around. And if you are interested, like I said, head over to the Strategic Boardroom on school. And otherwise, I will see you guys in the boardroom. Have a great rest of your day.